Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome cinematographer James Laxton ASC, who joins us to talk about their work on season 2 of Beef. James will talk us through the creation of the new visual style for the show's latest season. Please be warned there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with James. Hi, James. Thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Robert.
We're here to talk about Beef season 2, which has recently come out on Netflix. How have you found the reception to the show?
Yeah, it's really impressive. I mean, honestly, you do these projects. I'm sure everyone goes through this when they make something big on a TV show or they get a film, anything for that matter. You just sort of you're in it. Your head is 100% in it. Your heart's 100% in it, and you're making choices, creatively speaking, that are correct, and you get really close to the project all through post production. And I I lose sense of it. Like I know that I'm the only goals I have in my mind are sort of making the right choices that I think are correct or that will connect with people. But of course, you never know how it comes out. So when it's now that it's out and people do seem to be connecting with it and feeling like something about the show means something to them in whatever shape or form it is, it's it's a joyous feeling because it not that it's successful or not, it's just that it means something to people, and I think the hope we all have stuff like where our choices we make creatively speaking are connected with people, and that's showing the give and take between artist and audience.
Yeah, I guess when you're working on stuff, you don't really know how it's going to play because you're just there every day in it. But in the trenches, so as you said, you just need to want to make sure that you get what you need so that they can create an episode and make sure that it looks good, everything's in focus, make sure we press record.
Basics, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like when people are watching it and connecting to it and look, get that look and feel of it, because it's also the second series or something. So people are coming back for, for more really. And because you're a DOP who's basically the new kid on the block out of the sort of HODs as well, it must be a bit daunting stepping into somebody else's shoes to do a new series, but then also adding your own spin and your own flavor to the series.
Yes, all of those things are certainly true. I know, other than being a big fan of season one, as so many people are, I had no personal relationships with really anyone involved. So it was a blank experience for me to join. But one I was really excited about. I sort of just took a meeting with Sunny, and from the very get go, felt like we were on the same path and felt like what was important to us. Had a lot of common overlaps about how to tell the story, what felt right and what felt wrong. We were definitely conscious of and remain to be conscious of going forward about what the foundation of Beef's visual language is. There wanted to be something, while season two is different, of course, in many, many ways from season one, there wanted to be something that tied it and made the show be recognizable in some way, shape, or form on a structural level, foundational level about sort of visual storytelling, generally speaking. We of course deviate from there and branch off into new territories and make different decisions, but it wanted to have something. So it was that delicate balance of maintaining some structures of season one and pushing other ways and for season two.
In terms of just like the way stuff is framed, also like even the use of color, because sort of color palette, color grading. I know when I spoke to Grace Yoon, production designer, there's a lot of talking about pastels, but seasonal pastels like spring, summer, and autumn, and bringing those colors into it. And I feel like you did a really good job on how those colors are popping on screen, and especially like at the golf course, of how green the greens are and just how lush it looks. Makes me quite jealous when you look at that and then you look at your garden and you just think, is there something that I'm missing here? Have I done something wrong?
We all don't live in Southern California sunshine, 9/10 of the year. There's something about the sun that that does give us that. But I'm joking. But that was very much part of what was important to the choices we were making. Even when we were inside on stage, it was important to make sure that that classic golden sunshine was pushing through those windows, to make sure that while under the surface is all this chaos and dysfunction, there's something beautiful about the photography, and playing against type was very much part of what our goals were and what was important to the show, generally speaking. And yeah, and I don't want to rehash all the things you've talked to Grace about, or Grace has already expressed in her production design, which was incredible. But very much, that what was true for her in her design choices was true for me, of course, in my lighting choices as well. To try to maintain for the club this endless summer feeling where everything is glorious and beautiful and there's nothing wrong, and this very presentational affect to things was part of the choices we were making. As a counterpoint, as an example, the Chairwoman Park's storyline has a sort of wintry, cool, icy tonality to it. Even when she is in her Malibu home, the skyline is sort of ominous and dark and dreary, as opposed to sort of what a classical Malibu seaside home might sort of present as. So we were making all these choices very consciously to sort of maintain this constant through line of these generations having gone through different parts of their lives, and how how we can present and represent these different stages was part of what was important for us as storytellers.
And I think as well, like, you could just play around with it so much more visually for a audience to sort of add more subtext to it, but then also add character to what is being shown on screen, and sort of add a bit more layer to them. I think I quite like the idea of that, like, because it is a visual medium, of course, but then you could just feel that there's just something not right going on, and you can then play around with that with people, with tones, and you could say so much in an image that it might take 10 pages to explain, for example.
That's the joy of visual storytelling. It's able to do so much. I'm sometimes jealous of the written word too, because you can do that with that medium as well. It's different, but in any case, yeah, I mean, playing with subtext and genre blending, and playing against type, what audience's expectations of things might be different from what is actually going on under the surface. That's all sort of very much, in my mind, the genius of Sonny's writing. He's able to sort of navigate that so well, and my job and what I was focused on was to make sure that we were sort of echoing the same themes and concepts about the counterpunch to what was going on right under the surface, visually speaking. So there's lots of different examples of that throughout. I mean, the easiest one to talk about probably is the start of Oscar and various characters embracing in the end of episode 8, when the camera's spinning around. In my mind, that was all about, like, and I think Jake's too, the director of the episode's mind, of course, was about like playing against the audience's expectations of what the moment really is about. Where sort of the music is swelling, we're spinning around them. There is a love within that, but really under the surface of all those things, the relationship is fraught, and that's where the sadness and the honesty kind of come into the emotions of watching that scene. But yeah, we're sort of playing it, in my mind anyway, playing against the moment. What is really a goodbye, but photographing it as a possibility of love in the future. And to me, that's the genius of Jake and Sonny and all those creators about, like, well, I'll put it this way: it's my favorite part of working on Beef, is to be able to blend all these things together in one moment.
It probably does come into the edit as well, but it's also the way that you can capture it, and again, using the power of image to convey so much, and having the actors convey emotions in it as well. And you basically have your own little private theatre moment of watching these people perform, and getting those certain moments of being one of the first people to watch it and be like, oh, I can't wait to see like how it turns out in the final once it gets released.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what's cool about working with Jake and Sunny specifically is like, and this is true of Gutao as well, but you know, I'm just remembering some of the conversations I had with Jake and Sunny about this particular point, was that they have such a clear idea of how the edit is going to come even on the shoot day. They, within margins of error, of course, they pretty much know where the edit point is within a certain shot. And you can have conversations with them within detail towards sort of where things work and don't work, and within a piece of coverage that you're shooting, where the points are that seem to be the puzzle piece that fits into the next piece. And they have a sense of all that stuff going in. So you can actually, yes, it's true, there's all kinds of things that happen through the course of editing, and I don't mean to dismiss those things, of course, because they're hugely important. But the cool thing about working with them is that we do have conversations about how these things fit together, and have some sort of knowledge towards the back end, even when you're sort of in the middle of capturing things.
I think as well, like, because they've done it before, they will have a very clear and concise idea. And I guess as well, because they're directing, helping with writing, they're there throughout the whole sort of process. I bet you that once they're on set, they know the story inside out. They probably are so well planned that they're kind of, itching to be on set, to be like, cool, I can move on from this part of the scene and do the next one and the next one, and then move on to the next episode as well.
There is truth to that. I mean, I should say too, like, the counterpoint to that is sometimes the fun is, of course, the unexpected, and the cast might have a suggestion that all of a sudden changes an idea in a better way that no one thought about before. So of course, there's always the plan you go in on, and that's not to, I'm not trying to say that that's not important, because of course it is. But the joy of filmmaking too is both the planned and the unplanned, and something happens and all of a sudden the weather moves. Who knows? It could be anything, and all of a sudden a different thing comes in that finds its way into the final version that's more powerful than anyone would have thought. So that's the fun about filmmaking, I think, to me, and why I love my job so much, is just good to be around those moments and be involved in the process by which these things are used to make it seem better.
Yes, and even like looking at those like moments as well, like, because I just want to go back to the point you're making about when you're using the sun and using the stage and location work, because in your research, I can imagine you looked at lots of paintings to see how the sun is probably portrayed, and how you can have that sort of California sun is like could be quite sharp at times as well. How do you go about thinking about where the sun is going to be when you're shooting certain days in the continuity side of things, but then also making sure that it kind of the interior and exterior match when it comes to the edit as well?
All good questions. There's a technical answer to that question, which is just, you do your diligence to sort of plan and put things in place to present, a continuous version of reality. And you have to sort of know what comes before and after, and when you shot something to establish something. All those things are true. So that's the bit of the boring answer to the question. But an important one. I don't mean to dismiss it, because a lot of effort goes into all that stuff. That's real. But then how do I decide where I want the sun to be in a scene? I mean, as it relates to this project particularly, I think because we were sort of playing upon type so much, and playing with sort of tropes of images past, I think the classic, as an example, the classic thing that came to my mind and still comes to my mind when I think of Southern California light, is like, this endless sort of warm backlit thing, as an example, that like is this classic beauty. So I think when people think of Los Angeles, they think of a sense of beauty and stardom, and Hollywood and blah blah blah. So I think of backlight. So much of our choices were about that. But then once you place the backlight, then it becomes a front light for somebody else, and the continuity of that becomes important too. And you can place in block scenes where, I'm thinking of the scene as an example where Oscar pulls up to Kaylee's character in the middle of the golf course. Oscar, as the boss and and powerful man within this dynamic in the moment, he's in backlight. He was set the stage to where that's the case in terms of how the blocking worked. But then Kaylee is receiving this very kind of harsh, intense, front light that kind of is hard for her to see through, and she's kind of squinting at him, which implies a sense of, he's more powerful than her and within this dynamic at the moment of the scene. Of course, that does shift as the season evolves, but that's kind of the choices I'm making and helping Sunny and Jake, in the case of the episode we're referencing now, talk about like where we might want to block scenes and where position an actor might have this end result, which could be helpful to sort of provide context for the scene's power dynamic as well.
Again, it's all fascinating stuff because, again, so much could be said in just the image. And as you said, like having someone there standing in front of the sun and then looking up at them, squinting, and also the fact that like you just all you see is like a shadow coming towards you. So you're just like, who is that? And you think, oh, okay, it's the boss. And then he wants you to claw him. It's like, pardon.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
And there is an episode that I feel like a lot of like what you're trying to create gets reversed, and that's episode 4 in the hospital, which has the most, again, I think because probably speak for most people, hospitals are horrible places, and they're not the sort of nicest way, harshly lit, sterile. And then in Beef, they were very drab. It's very against sort of type of the show. How did you go about thinking of like creating the look for that? Because it's kind of the opposite of what you were doing before. Is it a case of just thinking differently like that? Or is it a case of like, we could be a bit more creative and not need to follow a specific look and feel for the other episodes?
Well, I think, the joy of, again, working with Seinfeld is just like how much genre blending and his voice. I think as a filmmaker, he's able to sort of in one breath touch on some sort of horror thriller elements, and in the camera pans a certain way, and all of a sudden you're in a physical comedy. And that's the fun thing about working with him and within his worlds, because all these different kind of approaches and styles seem to find their home in the same moment with Sunny, as opposed to feeling like, okay, well, this TV show is a horror show, and this TV show over here on Netflix is a different comedy, and all those things are good. And I don't mean to imply that you have to do one thing or the other, but what I love about specifically Beef and specifically Sunny is his ability to be all these things at the same time. And episode 4 is a great example of it. There's a lot of laughs in 4. I laugh quite a bit through that, but also there's like this visual language and tonality to the lighting and color palettes and the camera movement and the performances, for that matter, that do take on a different tone than the previous 3 episodes, and that I really love. And I think 4 for me really is where the show starts to move, because the rest of the season after that, utilizes all these different tools probably a little bit more than the first 3 episodes do, and it's a turn, as you say. So it's a fun one. I love all that stuff of her. The sort of harsh surgery lighting coming down on her as she's going into her surgery process, and she's talking about her insurance policy and all these different things, which is funny, but also the lighting is harsher, it's dramatic, there's a darker undertone to everything. The lensing is such that's a little bit unnerving in a way in that moment. All these different sort of expectations and tropes find their way into the same image. I just, on a personal level, I'm a deep fan of filmmakers that are able to do that. And I think, I credit Sunny and Jake both to being able to blend those things. It's a real talent.
It's amazing because it feels like a bottle episode because it's so different. But at the same time, as you said, it's like it just flips itself around in the way that it pushes the story forward. And it's like another big inciting incident of what's happening. And you just think, get me out of there. Then also the patients that they have in the hospital is just, obviously, like, people are going through bad things, but sometimes you just think, no, please, I just need to let me do my business and get out of here.
Yes, that's true. I've sat. We've all had moments in the hospital, and they're usually not particularly nice times, as the case is here. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and it kind of has like a feel of like a bit of a David Lynch feel as well, with just the characters filling it and just sort of oddness, and also I don't know, it's like the Gatorade, the whole scene of like all of it yellow, then it's red, and it's just what is going on.
Which is silly and funny as well. And that's kind of, again, so I don't mean to be repetitive, but just that's the fun bit about being playful with it too. You can have the music scoring, quite a thrillery horror thing going on the surface, and at the same time, the way she pops out from behind him to reveal herself, and referencing the Gatorade scene now, that the woman that pops up behind Charles, it's a pretty goofy moment at the same time. So it's like a scare plus laugh at the same time, which is fun.
It's just sort of like, what the hell? Did I see that right? And just
exactly.
like awkward, like scary laugh. Of like, haha, I'm in trouble. I just want to end the episode because I've stolen this from a director who suggested it to me, and they do it in their work. Is there a question that you want to ask me, or is there something that I might have missed in the questions that you'd like to talk about?
I'm a little underprepared for a question to ask you. But no, I think the show is something that it's hard to find these days, in the sense of just being so unique in a way. We live in a world where so much of our visual language these days is a little bit sometimes on autopilot, and I really want to just really shout out Sonny's vision to be so specific and unique to the world around him. We need more voices like that. I was really proud and honored to sort of be able to do this one with him.
And I think that's a really nice way to end the episode. James, thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it, Robert. Thank you.
Beef Season 2 is streaming now on Netflix. Go out and watch James and his team's amazing and beautiful work. Thank you again.
Thanks, Robert. Really appreciate it, buddy.
You take care, and bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.